Nathan Cole floated in the observation deck of the horizon's edge, watching the stars drift past the viewport. He was 34 years old and had spent the last 6 years studying alien life forms across the galaxy. His brown hair was getting longer than regulations allowed, and his uniform showed signs of wear from too many days in deep space. He held a datapad in his hands, reviewing notes about the solar system they were approaching. 3 planets showed signs of organic compounds, and his team was excited to collect samples. Captain Linda Hayes called from the bridge. Her voice came through the ship's speakers with a note of concern. Nathan pushed off the wall and floated toward the corridor, his body moving easily in the low gravity of the observation deck. He had grown up in Montana, where his father taught him to track animals through the wilderness. Space was different, but some instincts remained the same. Right now, those instincts were telling him something was wrong. When he reached the bridge, the rest of the crew was already there. Greg Martinez stood at the navigation console, his dark eyes fixed on the main screen. Kelly Brooks worked at the engineering station, her fingers moving quickly over the controls. The captain sat in the command chair, her jaw tight with tension. On the screen ahead, a massive structure hung in the darkness. It was at least 5 times the size of their ship, built from materials that reflected light in strange ways. The station looked abandoned. No lights showed in the windows and no signals responded to their hails. But the structure was too perfect to be derelict. Nathan moved closer to the screen, studying the design. The architecture was alien, with geometric patterns that seemed to shift when viewed from different angles. He had seen buildings like this in the database. They belonged to the Krell sovereignty, a powerful empire that controlled dozens of star systems. Captain Hayes made the decision to investigate. Standard protocols required them to check for survivors or useful technology. The crew prepared the boarding equipment and put on their environmental suits. Nathan grabbed his scientific gear, including scanners and sample containers. Part of him wanted to stay on the ship, but his curiosity was stronger than his caution. This was what he had trained for, the chance to study alien structures up close. The airlock connected smoothly with the station's docking port. The seal held, and atmospheric readings showed breathable air inside. That was the first sign that something was wrong. Derelict stations did not maintain life support. Greg pointed this out, but the captain ordered them forward anyway. They had come too far to turn back without at least looking around. Inside, the station was dark but not cold. Emergency lighting provided dim illumination along the corridors. The walls were smooth and reflected their helmet lights with an oily sheen. Nathan took readings with his scanner, detecting power signatures throughout the structure. Whatever this place was, it was very much operational. His father's voice echoed in his memory, warning him about traps that looked too inviting. Animals that wanted to catch prey often left bait in obvious places. They moved deeper into the station, following a main corridor that curved gently to the left. The architecture suggested this was a research facility, rather than a military installation. Nathan saw rooms filled with equipment he did not recognize, chambers with transparent walls and computer terminals displaying symbols in the Krell language. Kelly stopped at one terminal and tried to access the data, but the system required authorization codes they did not have. The attack came without warning. The corridor lights flashed bright white, forcing the crew to shield their eyes. Nathan felt a wave of pressure wash over his body, and his suit systems went dead. His helmet display showed nothing but static. Around him, his crewmates collapsed to the floor, their movements sluggish and uncoordinated. He tried to reach for his communicator, but his arms would not respond properly. The electromagnetic pulse had disabled their equipment and disrupted their nervous systems. Figures emerged from hidden doors in the walls. They were tall, at least 7 feet high, with bodies covered in crystalline plates that looked like armor but were actually part of their biology. Their heads had multiple sensory organs arranged in a circular pattern, and their limbs ended in precise manipulators rather than hands. These were the Krell, and they moved with the cold efficiency of beings who had performed this operation many times before. Nathan found himself lifted by 2 Krell soldiers. They carried him through corridors that twisted and turned until he lost all sense of direction. His mind was clearing slowly from the electromagnetic pulse, but his body still felt heavy and weak. They passed through a series of security doors that opened automatically, responding to signals from the Krell rather than physical controls. Eventually, They brought him to a large chamber with high ceilings and walls lined with monitoring equipment. Other members of his crew were being taken to different rooms. He caught a glimpse of Captain Hayes struggling against her captors, and Greg Martinez trying to speak through the neural disruption. Then the doors closed and Nathan was alone with the Krell commander. The commander stood over 8 feet tall, with crystalline plates that shifted through different colors as it moved. A device attached to its head began to glow, and Nathan heard a voice inside his mind. The neural translator was crude but functional, turning the alien's thoughts into words he could understand. The commander explained that humans had become interesting to the Krell sovereignty. Reports from border regions told of humans surviving situations that should have killed them. The Krell wanted to know if these stories were true or simply exaggerations. Nathan tried to speak, but his voice came out weak and raspy. The commander did not seem interested in conversation. It continued explaining in that cold, emotionless tone. The Krell had designed a test to measure human survival capabilities. They had captured a creature from a world they called the Outer Veil, a place where life evolved under extreme conditions. The creature was the perfect predator, having killed every test subject placed in its enclosure. No prey had survived longer than 47 seconds. The commander gestured toward a large window in the wall. Through it, Nathan could see a circular chamber about 30 meters across. The floor was made of metal, and lights in the ceiling created an artificial day. In the far corner, he saw something move. It was large and covered in black scales that seemed to drink in the light. 6 limbs supported a body built for speed and power. The head turned toward the window, and Nathan saw eyes that glowed with a faint inner light. The Krell commander explained the terms. Nathan would enter the chamber with the creature they called the Void Reaper. Sensors would monitor his biological responses and record how he died. In exchange for his cooperation, the rest of his crew would be released unharmed. If he refused, all of them would be executed. The commander claimed this was not cruelty but science. They wanted to understand why humans told such elaborate survival stories. The data would be valuable to the Krell sovereignty's expansion plans. Nathan felt fear settle in his stomach like ice water. His training had prepared him for many situations, but being fed to an alien predator was not one of them. He thought about his crewmates, about Captain Hayes and Greg and Kelly and the others. He thought about his father's lessons in the Montana wilderness, about how to read animal behavior and understand what drove predators to hunt. Most of all, he thought about the fact that he had no choice. If he refused, everyone would die. If he accepted, at least the others had a chance. He told the commander he would do it. The alien's crystalline plate shifted to a color that might have indicated satisfaction. Guards came and removed Nathan's damaged environmental suit, replacing it with simple cloth garments that would not interfere with the monitoring equipment. They attached sensors to his skin, small devices that felt cold and stuck with medical adhesive. The commander explained that these would track his heart rate, brain activity, body temperature, and chemical responses. The Krell wanted complete data on human fear and death. As they led him toward the chamber door, Nathan asked questions about the creature. The commander seemed amused by this request but provided basic information. The Void Reaper came from a world with 3 times Earth's gravity and an atmosphere rich in methane. It hunted using thermal and electromagnetic senses in addition to normal vision. It possessed intelligence roughly equal to Earth's great apes and could solve simple problems. Most importantly, it had never shown mercy to any living thing placed in its territory. Nathan processed this information as the door to the chamber opened. The air inside was warmer than the corridor, and he could smell something sharp and organic. Through the opening, he could see the Void Reaper watching from its position across the room. The creature was even larger up close, with scales that seemed to move slightly as if they were alive. Its claws were retracted but visible beneath the scales, each one long enough to tear through flesh and bone. The guards pushed him forward gently, and the door sealed behind him with a soft hiss. Nathan stood in the center of the arena, alone with the most dangerous predator the Krell had ever captured. His heart was pounding so hard he could feel it in his throat. His hands were shaking despite his efforts to stay calm, but somewhere underneath the fear, his scientific mien. The Void Reaper moved across the arena floor with a grace that seemed impossible for something so large. Each step was silent despite the creature's weight, and its body flowed like liquid shadow. Nathan stood perfectly still, fighting every instinct that screamed at him to run. Running would trigger the chase response. Every predator on Earth reacted to fleeing prey with immediate pursuit. He had to assume this alien creature operated on similar principles. The creature was about 20 feet away now, close enough that Nathan could see the individual scales on its hide. They overlapped like armor plates but moved independently, creating rippling patterns across the surface. The eyes were the most unsettling feature, glowing with that inner light that shifted from orange to red as it studied him. Nathan could feel the weight of its gaze. The intelligence behind those alien eyes processing information about this new element in its territory. He thought about his father's lessons in the woods outside their Montana home. When you encounter a predator, you never run unless you know you can reach safety. You never show your back unless you want to become prey. Most importantly, you never challenge unless you are prepared to fight to the death. Nathan was not prepared to fight. He had no weapons, no armor, and no chance of winning a physical confrontation. His only option was to not be seen as prey or threat. Slowly, carefully, Nathan lowered himself to the floor. He sat down cross-legged, making his body smaller and less threatening. He turned his head slightly to the side, avoiding direct eye contact. In the animal kingdom, staring directly at a predator was a challenge. Looking away was submission, but not the kind that triggered attack. It was acknowledgement that the predator was dominant without offering yourself as easy prey. The Void Reaper stopped moving. Its head tilted to one side, and Nathan could hear a soft clicking sound coming from somewhere inside its body. The creature was confused. This behavior did not match anything it had experienced before. The previous test subjects had run, fought, or frozen in terror. This human was doing something different, something the creature did not know how to categorize. Nathan focused on his breathing. He had studied meditation techniques as part of his training, ways to control his physiological responses to stress. He slowed his heart rate consciously, drawing deep breaths and releasing them steadily. The sensors on his skin would be reporting this to the Krell scientists, and he hoped they were as confused as the creature in front of him. Fear was natural, but panic was a choice. He chose to remain calm. The creature began to circle him at a distance of about 15 feet. It moved with its body low to the ground, all 6 limbs working in coordination to maintain balance. Nathan could see the muscles moving beneath the scales, powerful and efficient. The claws extended slightly from their sheaths, testing the metal floor and leaving tiny scratches in the surface. The Void Reaper was assessing him from different angles, trying to understand what he was and whether he posed any danger. Hours passed in this strange standoff. The artificial lights in the ceiling dimmed slightly, mimicking the cycle of day on some distant world. Nathan remained sitting, though his legs were starting to cramp from the position. He shifted slightly, moving slowly enough that the gesture would not seem threatening. The Void Reaper watched every movement, but did not approach closer or retreat further away. Beyond the transparent wall, Nathan knew the Krell scientists were watching and recording everything. They had expected him to die in the first minute. Now they were seeing something their data could not explain. He wondered what Captain Hayes and the others thought, whether they were watching him too, whether they believed he could survive until morning. He wondered if even he believed it. The creature made a sudden move, a mock charge that closed half the distance between them before stopping abruptly. Nathan's heart rate spiked, but he forced himself to remain still. He did not flinch, did not raise his hands in defense, did not give any sign that he interpreted the move as an attack. After a moment, the Void Reaper backed away to its previous distance. It had been testing him, trying to provoke a fear response. Nathan understood what was happening. The creature was not a mindless killing machine. It was an intelligent predator trying to understand something that did not fit its established patterns. Every creature it had encountered before had shown obvious fear or aggression. Nathan was showing neither. He was simply existing in the same space, acknowledging the creature's presence without challenging it or fleeing from it. As the hours continued, Nathan began to speak. His voice was low and steady, barely above a whisper. The words did not matter. The creature could not understand human language, but tone was universal among intelligent species. A calm voice indicated no threat. A steady rhythm suggested predictability. He talked about his childhood, about tracking deer through the snow with his father, about learning to read the signs that animals left in the forest. The Void Reaper's circling gradually slowed. It settled into a resting position about 10 feet away, still watching but no longer actively stalking. Its eyes dimmed slightly, the glow becoming softer and more orange than red. Nathan recognized this as a sign of relaxation. Whatever tension had driven the creature when he first entered the arena was beginning to ease. When the artificial night cycle began, the lights dimmed to near darkness. Only emergency strips along the floor provided illumination. Nathan's eyes adjusted slowly and he could see the Void Reaper as a dark shape against the darker wall. The creature's eyes still glowed, watching him through the shadows. He needed to sleep at some point, but sleeping meant vulnerability. He decided to risk it anyway. If the creature wanted to kill him, it had already had plenty of opportunities. Nathan lay down on his side, curling slightly into a defensive position that kept his vital organs protected. He kept his eyes partially open, maintaining awareness of the creature's location through his peripheral vision. His father had taught him this technique for sleeping in the wilderness. You never fully slept when predators were near, but you could enter a state of rest where your body recovered while your mind stayed alert to danger. The Void Reaper did not approach. Instead, it remained in its position against the wall, eyes glowing steadily in the darkness. Nathan felt himself drifting into that half-sleep state, aware of the creature but not actively watching it. Time became fluid in the darkness. Minutes might have been hours. He dreamed of Montana, of walking through forest trails with his father, of learning which animals were dangerous and which were simply scared. Something woke him. Not a sound or movement, but a change in the air pressure. His eyes opened fully and he saw that the Void Reaper had moved closer. It was now less than 6 feet away, its massive body creating a wall between Nathan and the observation window. The creature was not attacking or threatening. It was positioning itself as a barrier, the way pack animals protect vulnerable members during sleep. Nathan's heart rate increased, but he controlled his breathing and remained still. This was significant. The creature was not just tolerating his presence, it was exhibiting protective behavior. Something in the past hours had shifted the Void Reaper's perception of him from potential prey to something else, maybe a fellow captive, maybe the beginning of a pack dynamic. Nathan did not fully understand it yet, but he recognized the opportunity it represented. He continued to rest, though true sleep was impossible now. His mind was racing with observations and theories. The creature's behavior suggested social instincts that went beyond simple predator responses. Most solitary hunters did not protect other species. This protective positioning indicated that the Void Reaper had some concept of cooperation or alliance. Maybe on its homeworld it lived in groups. Maybe it had been alone in Krell captivity long enough to be desperate for any kind of social contact. The artificial dawn began slowly, lights gradually increasing in intensity to mimic sunrise. Nathan sat up carefully, moving slowly to avoid startling the creature. The Void Reaper watched him but did not move away. Its eyes had shifted back to that orange glow that seemed to indicate calm. Nathan felt a surge of cautious optimism. He had survived the first night. That alone was more than any previous test subject had achieved. He looked toward the observation window and saw Krell scientists gathered there, their crystalline bodies reflecting the morning light. They were clearly surprised by what they had witnessed. Their test had not produced the expected results. The human was still alive, and the creature had not only failed to attack, but had actually shown protective behavior. The Krell would be analyzing their data, trying to understand what had happened. Nathan noticed the food and water supply in the corner of the arena for the first time. In the stress of the previous day, he had not paid attention to it. Now his body reminded him that he needed both. He stood up slowly, telegraphing his movements to the Void Reaper. The creature watched with interest but did not interfere as he walked to the corner. The water was clean and tasteless, probably purified by Krell technology. The food was a nutrient paste that had no particular flavor, but would provide calories and basic nutrition. Nathan drank sparingly and ate only enough to take the edge off his hunger. He needed to make the supplies last, and he needed to keep his movements predictable and non-threat. The third morning began with a change in the routine. Nathan woke to find the Void Reaper sitting only 3 feet away, watching him with those glowing eyes. The creature's body language was relaxed, with its claws fully retracted and its scales lying flat against its body. This was the closest it had been during a waking period, and Nathan took it as a positive sign. He sat up slowly and greeted the creature in the same low, steady voice he had been using since the first day. Nathan had a theory he wanted to test. Social animals across the galaxy seemed to share certain behaviors, and one of the most universal was the sharing of food. It created bonds and established trust. He stood and walked to the food corner, aware that the Void Reaper was following at a short distance. He took a small portion of the nutrient paste and carried it back to his usual sitting spot. Then he did something that would either strengthen their connection or get him killed. He placed the food on the floor midway between himself and where the creature typically rested. Then he retreated to his corner and waited. The Void Reaper approached the offering cautiously, extending its sensory organs to investigate. Nathan could see small tendrils emerging from slits near the creature's head, waving through the air to sample chemical signatures. After several seconds of analysis, the creature consumed the paste in one quick motion. Nathan repeated this process throughout the day, each time placing the food slightly closer to his own position. The Void Reaper accepted each offering without hesitation, growing more comfortable with the routine. By late afternoon, the creature was feeding less than 2 feet from where Nathan sat. He could hear the subtle sounds it made while eating, soft clicking noises that reminded him of Earth insects but deeper and more resonant. The Krell scientists were watching with increased interest. Nathan could see them gathering at the observation window, their crystalline bodies shifting colors as they communicated among themselves. He imagined their conversations, their attempts to explain what they were witnessing through their scientific frameworks. They probably had never considered that their perfect killing machine might be capable of social bonding. On the 4th day, Nathan decided to attempt physical contact. It was a risk that could undo all the progress he had made, but he believed the time was right. During their shared feeding time, when the Void Reaper was eating from his hand placement just inches from his leg, he slowly extended his hand toward the creature. He moved with deliberate slowness, making sure the gesture could not be interpreted as threatening or aggressive. The Void Reaper paused in its eating and turned its head toward Nathan's hand. Those sensory tendrils emerged again, investigating his skin from a distance of several inches. Nathan held perfectly still, barely breathing as the creature processed information about his body chemistry and temperature. After what felt like an eternity, the Void Reaper moved closer and allowed Nathan's fingertips to touch the scales on its foreleg. The scales were cooler than Nathan expected, with a texture somewhere between smooth stone and metal. They moved slightly under his touch, individual plates adjusting to accommodate the pressure. The Void Reaper did not pull away or show any sign of distress. It simply waited, allowing the contact to continue for a few seconds before Nathan withdrew his hand. He had established the possibility of touch, and that changed everything. Over the next several hours, Nathan repeated the touching process multiple times. Each contact lasted slightly longer than the previous one, and the Void Reaper seemed to grow more comfortable with the interaction. By evening, Nathan was running his hand along the creature's foreleg in long, steady strokes. The creature made a sound he had not heard before, a low rumbling that seemed to come from deep within its body. It was not quite a purr, but it served a similar purpose. The Void Reaper was expressing contentment. Captain Hayes and the crew were watching from their cells in another part of the station. Greg Martinez understood what Nathan was attempting because he had read Nathan's research papers on animal behavior. Kelly Brooks was less optimistic, but had to admit that Nathan had survived far longer than anyone expected. The rest of the crew watched with a mixture of hope and disbelief as their colleague formed a bond with a creature designed by evolution to kill. The Krell commander visited the observation deck on the 5th day. Nathan could see the tall figure standing behind the window, its crystalline body reflecting the arena lights and complex patterns. The neural translator activated in Nathan's mind, and he heard the commander's thoughts converted into words. The alien expressed surprise at Nathan's survival and curiosity about his methods. The Krell had never witnessed such behavior in any of their test subjects. Nathan considered responding but decided silence was better. He was not ready to explain his techniques to the beings who had put him in this situation. Instead, he continued his routine with the Void Reaper, demonstrating through actions rather than words. The creature responded to his attention by moving even closer, until they were sitting side by side with barely any space between them. On the 6th morning, Nathan woke to find himself in physical contact with the Void Reaper. The creature had curled its body around him during the night, providing warmth and protection. Its massive form created a barrier between Nathan and the rest of the arena, and one of its limbs rested lightly across his legs. This level of trust was extraordinary. The creature was sleeping in contact with him, making itself vulnerable to potential attack. Nathan remained still, not wanting to disturb the creature or break the spell of this moment. He studied the Void Reaper's features up close, noting details he had missed from a distance. The scales had subtle patterns etched into them, possibly scars from battles on its homeworld. The claws, even fully retracted, were impressive weapons that could tear through most materials. The sensory organs near its head moved slightly even in sleep, maintaining awareness of the surrounding environment. When the Void Reaper finally woke, it did not startle or pull away. It simply adjusted its position slightly and made that rumbling sound of contentment. Nathan responded by gently stroking the creature's scaled hide, running his hand along its shoulder and down its foreleg. The creature's eyes glowed with that warm orange light, and its body language spoke of complete relaxation. Nathan began to teach the creature simple communication signals. When he raised his hand in a specific gesture, the creature learned to approach. When he made a different gesture, it gave him space. These were not trained behaviors in the traditional sense. The Void Reaper was intelligent enough to understand that these signals made their cohabitation easier. It was choosing to cooperate because cooperation benefited both of them. The creature also began teaching Nathan its own signals. When it wanted interaction, it would make a specific clicking pattern with its claws against the floor. When it wanted quiet time, it would settle in a particular posture with its head lowered and scales flattened. Nathan learned to recognize and respect these signals, creating a two-way communication system that grew more sophisticated each day. The Krell introduced a test on the 7th day. They released a small mechanical drone into the arena, something designed to mimic prey behavior. The drone moved erratically across the floor, emitting sounds and energy signatures that Nathan assumed would trigger hunting instincts. He felt a moment of fear, worried that the presence of prey would remind the Void Reaper that he too was made of meat. The creature's transformation was immediate and dramatic. Its body tensed, scales shifting to create better aerodynamics. Its eyes brightened to a sharp red glow, and its claws extended fully. The Void Reaper dropped into a hunting crouch and began stalking the drone with terrifying efficiency. Nathan pressed himself against the wall, trying to stay out of the way. The hunt was brief and brutal. The Void Reaper moved with speed Nathan had not seen before, closing the distance to the drone in seconds. Its claws tore through the mechanical device with ease, destroying it in a single strike. For a moment, Nathan saw the creature as the Krell had intended, a perfect killing machine operating at peak efficiency. His heart raced with renewed fear, but then something remarkable happened. After destroying the drone, the Void Reaper did not remain in hunting mode. Its body relaxed, scales settling back into their normal position. The eye glow softened from red to orange. It turned away from the destroyed drone and walked directly to Nathan, settling beside him with that same calm demeanor it had shown for days. The hunt had satisfied an instinctual need, but it had not changed the relationship they had built. Nathan reached out and touched the creature's head, running his hand along the ridges above its eyes. The Void Reaper leaned into the contact, making that rumbling sound of contentment. It was still a deadly predator. It had just proven that beyond any doubt. But it was also Nathan's companion now, capable of distinguishing between prey and pack member. The hunting instinct and the social bond existed side by side, neither negating the other. The Krell scientists gathered at the observation window were forced to acknowledge what they were witnessing. Their perfect weapon had not been tamed or broken. It had been befriended. The creature retained all its lethal capabilities while also exhibiting social behaviors that the Krell had not believed possible. The human had achieved. The 8th day marked a turning point in Nathan's captivity. The relationship with the Void Reaper had evolved beyond simple tolerance into something that resembled genuine companionship. When the artificial dawn illuminated the arena, the creature greeted Nathan with gentle vocalizations and relaxed body language. They had developed a morning routine where they approached the food supply together, fed side by side, and then spent time in quiet companionship while Nathan spoke, and the creature listened. Nathan had begun to understand the subtle variations in the creature's communication. The bioluminescent glow of its eyes shifted through different wavelengths depending on its emotional state. Warm orange meant contentment and relaxation. Bright red indicated alertness or aggression, though Nathan had not seen that color directed at him since the first day. A softer yellow seemed to express curiosity or interest. The creature was constantly communicating through these color shifts, and Nathan was learning to read them like a language. The physical contact between them had become natural and frequent. Nathan would rest his hand on the creature's scaled hide while they sat together, and the Void Reaper would lean into the touch. Sometimes the creature would place its massive head on Nathan's lap, a gesture of trust that never failed to move him. The weight of that head was considerable, and the proximity to those powerful jaws should have terrified him. But Nathan felt only a sense of connection. The Krell scientists were divided on how to interpret their observations. Some argued that Nathan had simply found a way to suppress the creature's predatory instincts through manipulation. Others insisted that what they were witnessing was evidence of unexpected social capabilities in a species they had assumed was purely solitary. The commander remained silent on the debate, simply ordering the observation to continue without interference. Nathan's crewmates watched from their cells with growing hope. Captain Hayes had initially expected to see her xenobiologist torn apart within minutes. Now she was watching him form bonds with an alien predator that defied all logical expectations. Greg Martinez took detailed notes on everything he observed, recognizing that Nathan's techniques represented a breakthrough in interspecies communication. Kelly Brooks had stopped betting on when Nathan would die and started wondering how long the Krell would let this experiment continue. On the 9th day, Nathan discovered something that changed his understanding of the Void Reaper. The creature began exhibiting playful behavior. It would approach Nathan with exaggerated movements, then dart away when he reached out. At first, Nathan thought this might be hunting practice, but the body language was all wrong for that. The eyes glowed with that yellow curiosity color, and the scales rippled in patterns that Nathan had learned indicated excitement rather than aggression. Nathan engaged with the play carefully, moving in ways that mirrored the creature's energy without escalating to anything that might trigger real hunting instincts. They developed a game where the Void Reaper would hide behind the limited structures in the arena, and Nathan would pretend to search for it. When he found the creature, it would make a sound that Nathan interpreted as pleasure, something like a chirping mixed with that deep rumbling purr. The play sessions revealed intelligence that the Krell had never documented. The Void Reaper could understand complex concepts like turn-taking, and could modify its behavior based on Nathan's responses. When Nathan showed signs of fatigue, the creature would settle down and rest. When Nathan seemed energetic, the creature would initiate more active play. It was reading his cues and adjusting its behavior accordingly, demonstrating a level of social awareness that rivaled Earth's most intelligent predators. The commander visited the observation deck again on the 10th day. This time the neural translator carried a tone of grudging respect. The Krell leader acknowledged that Nathan had accomplished something the sovereignty had believed impossible. The Void Reaper had killed dozens of test subjects from multiple species, including some Krell prisoners. Yet this human had not only survived but had formed a bond that demonstrated capabilities the Krell had never considered. The commander asked Nathan directly how he had achieved this. Nathan considered his answer carefully before responding through the neural link. He explained that he had not tried to dominate or tame the creature. Instead, he had approached it as he would any intelligent being capable of choice. He offered respect, established predictable behavior, and recognized that the Void Reaper had psychological needs beyond hunting. The creature was not just a killing machine. It was a social being that had been isolated in captivity, desperate for connection. The commander processed this information in silence. Nathan could see the alien's crystalline body shifting through complex color patterns, indicating deep thought or internal debate. Finally, the commander acknowledged that the Krell had fundamentally misunderstood what made humans dangerous in the galactic community. They had assumed human survival was based on aggression or luck. Now they were forced to consider that humans possessed a unique evolutionary trait for forming alliances across species boundaries. Nathan seized the opportunity to negotiate. He proposed a deal where he would provide detailed documentation of his methods in exchange for the release of his crew. The Krell could learn from his techniques and apply them to their own diplomatic efforts. Additionally, Nathan requested that the Void Reaper be released from captivity and returned to its homeworld, or at minimum placed in a suitable habitat. The creature deserved better than life as a test subject. The commander agreed to consider the proposal and departed. Nathan returned to his routine with the Void Reaper, uncertain about what the future held but hopeful that his survival might benefit both his crew and the creature that had become his unlikely companion. That night, as they settled together for sleep, Nathan reflected on how strange his life had become. 2 weeks ago, he had been a scientist studying alien ecosystems. Now he was sleeping beside the galaxy's most feared predator, feeling safer than he had in the sterile corridors of his own ship. The 11th day brought new challenges. The Krell adjusted the environmental controls, lowering the temperature significantly. Nathan suspected this was a stress test to see if the bond would hold under adverse conditions. The cold was uncomfortable for him, his thin clothing providing little protection. The Void Reaper noticed his discomfort immediately, its sensory organs detecting the change in his body temperature. The creature responded by pressing its body closer to Nathan, using its own heat to warm him. The scales that had seemed cold during their first contact now felt pleasantly warm, and Nathan realized the Void Reaper could regulate its body temperature to some degree. He wrapped his arms around the creature's neck, and it adjusted its position to provide maximum warmth. They remained like that for hours, Nathan shivering against the creature's hide while it made soft rumbling sounds of concern. This act of protection reinforced what Nathan had suspected. The Void Reaper was not helping him out of training or conditioning. It was making a conscious choice to care for a being it considered part of its social group. The creature had adopted Nathan into its pack structure, even though that pack consisted of only 2 members. When the temperature returned to normal several hours later, Nathan made sure to show his gratitude through gentle touches and soothing words. The creature's eyes glowed with that warm orange contentment. On the 12th day, the commander returned with a decision. The Krell would accept Nathan's proposal with modifications. His crew would be released and the Horizon's Edge returned with full repairs. Nathan would provide comprehensive documentation of his techniques. But regarding the Void Reaper, the commander offered an unexpected choice. The creature could be returned to its homeworld if possible, or it could remain with Nathan if that was what both of them wanted. Nathan was stunned by this option. The idea that he might be responsible for the creature's future was both thrilling and terrifying. He looked at the Void Reaper, sitting calmly beside him, eyes glowing with that familiar orange warmth. The creature had saved his life simply by choosing not to kill him. It had protected him during the cold, played with him, slept beside him. Could he really walk away and leave it to an unknown fate? The commander explained that they would open a passage between the arena and the corridor leading to the Horizon's Edge. The Void Reaper would be given the opportunity to follow Nathan or remain in the arena. If it chose to follow, Nathan would be responsible for its care and behavior. The Krell would provide information about the creature's dietary and environmental needs. But beyond that, the responsibility would be Nathan's alone. Nathan agreed without hesitation. He could not abandon the creature that had become his companion. That evening, as they prepared for what might be their last night in the arena together, Nathan explained the situation to the Void Reaper. He knew the creature could not understand his words, but he believed it could understand his intention through tone and gesture. He described the choice that would come tomorrow, the opportunity for freedom, the unknown future they might face together. The Void Reaper listened with its head resting on Nathan's lap, eyes shifting through various colors as if processing the information. When Nathan finished speaking, the 13th morning arrived with a sense of finality. Nathan woke to find the Void Reaper already awake, sitting beside him with those glowing eyes fixed on his face. The creature seemed to sense that something significant was about to happen. Its scales rippled in patterns that Nathan had learned indicated nervousness or anticipation. He reached out and stroked the creature's head, offering what comfort he could through the familiar gesture. The observation window lit up with additional lighting, and Nathan saw the Krell commander standing there with several scientists. The neural translator activated in his mind, and the commander's thoughts became words. The time had come to honor their agreement. The door to the arena would open, leading to a corridor that connected with the docking bay where the Horizon's Edge waited. Nathan's crew had already been released and were preparing the ship for departure. Nathan stood slowly, his legs stiff from nearly 2 weeks of limited movement. The Void Reaper rose with him, pressing close to his side. Together they walked toward the door that had sealed Nathan in the arena 13 days ago. The door opened with a soft hiss, revealing a dimly lit corridor beyond. Nathan took a deep breath and stepped through, wondering if the creature would follow or choose to remain in the familiar space of the arena. The Void Reaper did not hesitate. It followed Nathan into the corridor, staying close enough that its scaled hide brushed against his leg. Nathan felt a surge of emotion that surprised him with its intensity. This creature had every reason to distrust all captors, yet it was choosing to stay with him. They walked through the winding corridors of the Krell station together, an unlikely pair that represented something the galaxy had never seen before. The docking bay was larger than Nathan expected, with the horizon's edge sitting in the center under bright lights. He could see his crewmates through the ship's viewports, their faces showing a mixture of relief and concern. They were happy to see Nathan alive, but clearly uncertain about the massive predator walking beside him. Captain Hayes stood at the airlock entrance, her expression carefully neutral as Nathan approached. Nathan explained the situation as clearly as he could. The Void Reaper had chosen to come with him, and he had accepted responsibility for the creature's care and behavior. Hayes listened without interrupting, her eyes moving between Nathan and the creature. Greg Martinez joined them at the airlock, his scientific curiosity evident in his expression. Kelly Brooks hung back, one hand resting near the emergency door controls, ready to seal sections if the predator became aggressive. The captain made her decision quickly. She trusted Nathan's judgment and recognized that what he had accomplished was unprecedented. They would accept the Void Reaper aboard the ship under strict protocols. The creature would have dedicated quarters that could be sealed if necessary. Nathan would be responsible for feeding and caring for it. Most importantly, the entire crew would learn to read the creature's body language to avoid triggering defensive or aggressive responses. Leading the Void Reaper onto the ship was one of the most stressful moments of Nathan's life. The creature had never been in such a confined space with so many unfamiliar beings. Its eyes shifted from orange to yellow, indicating heightened alertness. Nathan kept one hand on the creature's hide and maintained a steady stream of calm words. The Void Reaper followed him through the airlock and into the ship, moving cautiously but without aggression. The Krell provided Nathan with a data device containing information about the Void Reaper's biology and care requirements. The creature required a specific mineral supplement in its diet and preferred environments with lower light levels than humans found comfortable. It could tolerate a wide range of temperatures but performed best in warmth. Most importantly, the data included information about the creature's homeworld, though the Krell noted that returning it there might not be practical given the extreme environmental conditions. As the horizon's edge prepared to depart, Nathan stood in the cargo bay that had been converted into temporary quarters for the Void Reaper. The creature explored the space cautiously, investigating every corner with its sensory organs. Nathan had arranged some of the equipment to create hiding places and elevated areas where the creature could rest. It was not ideal, but it was better than a cage or an arena. The ship undocked from the Krell station without incident. As they moved away into open space, Nathan felt tension he had been carrying for 2 weeks finally begin to ease. He was free, his crew was safe, and the creature that had become his companion was with him. The situation was far from perfect, and he knew there would be challenges ahead, but they had survived the impossible together. Over the following days, the crew gradually adapted to having the Void Reaper aboard. Greg Martinez spent hours observing the creature and taking notes on its behavior. Kelly Brooks slowly overcame her fear after watching Nathan interact safely with it multiple times. Other crew members took turns visiting the cargo bay, learning to read the creature's signals and respect its boundaries. The Void Reaper, for its part, seemed to accept the ship as its new territory, and the crew as members of an extended pack. Nathan began working on the documentation he had promised the Krell. He detailed every technique he had used, every observation he had made, and every theory he had developed about interspecies bonding. The work was extensive, filling hundreds of pages with detailed analysis of body language, communication methods, and the psychological principles that guided his approach. He included references to Earth's history of animal domestication, drawing parallels between ancient humans befriending wolves and his own experience with the Void Reaper. The most important insight Nathan documented was this: bonding with predators requires recognizing them as complex beings with needs beyond hunting. The Void Reaper had not bonded with him because he suppressed its nature or tamed it. They had bonded because Nathan offered something the creature needed: social connection and companionship. Every intelligent species, whether predator or prey, required connection with others. That fundamental need transcended biology and could bridge even the widest evolutionary gaps. As the Horizon's Edge journeyed back toward human space, word of Nathan's experience began to spread. The Krell released carefully edited data about the experiment, and other species took notice. Some viewed it as propaganda or deception. Others saw it as evidence that humans possessed unique capabilities for alliance building. The debates raged across diplomatic channels, with various factions trying to understand what Nathan's survival meant for the broader galactic community. Nathan gave the Void Reaper a name during the second week of their journey. He called it Shadow because of how it moved through darkness with such fluid grace. The creature seemed to respond to the name, or at least to the specific tone Nathan used when saying it. Shadow became an unofficial member of the crew, a reminder that the galaxy was full of beings who could become allies if approached with understanding rather than fear. When they finally reached human space 3 months later, the Horizon's Edge was met by representatives from several scientific institutions and government agencies. Everyone wanted to see the creature that should have killed Nathan Cole, but had instead become his companion. Nathan insisted on strict protocols for any interactions, refusing to let Shadow be treated as a curiosity or test subject. The creature had earned better treatment through its intelligence and capacity for connection. Nathan accepted an invitation to present his findings at a major xenobiology conference on Unity Station, a massive orbital platform that served as neutral ground for multiple species. He prepared his presentation carefully, knowing that this would be his opportunity to explain not just what he had done, but why it mattered for humanity's future in the galaxy. Shadow accompanied him to the conference, a living demonstration of the principles he would discuss. The presentation hall was filled with beings from dozens of species, including several Krell scientists who had observed Nathan's time in the arena. Nathan stood at the podium with Shadow resting calmly beside him, a sight that caused visible reactions from the audience. He began by acknowledging the fear that many felt looking at Shadow. That fear was natural and appropriate. Shadow was dangerous, and pretending otherwise would be dishonest and disrespectful to the creature's nature. But, Nathan continued, danger and evil were not the same thing. Shadow was a predator by evolution, but that did not make it a monster. It was an intelligent being with complex needs and the capacity for choice. Nathan had survived not by dominating Shadow or suppressing its nature, but by recognizing its intelligence and offering it something valuable, a social connection that satisfied needs no amount of food or territory could fulfill. The question period that followed was intense. A Krell scientist asked if Nathan believed all species could be befriended through his methods. Nathan's response was measured and honest. Not all species, and certainly not all individuals. Some beings were too alien in psychology to form meaningful bonds with humans. Some were too damaged by previous experiences to trust again. But far more potential allies existed than most species recognized, if one approached them with patience and respect rather than assumption and fear. That night, in his quarters aboard Unity Station, Nathan worked at his desk.